Hello, everyone. Chief McPhee back with you on the Chief C4 podcast on this 4/20 of 20 self-isolation edition of the Chief C4 podcast. Good show for you on episode 4. Brought on a friend of mine who is the head football coach for the local Potterville Vikings varsity high school, varsity football team at Potterville High School. I had the opportunity to coach under Dave in 2017, and I gave him some assistance in 2018, but not as full-time. So I learned a lot from Dave. He's for his age, he's very old school football coach, which appealed to me when I worked for him. And he is a tireless worker. He works very hard, puts a lot of time in to his craft. And we're going to bring him on, talk some football, high school, college football, and kind of his life as he's lived out east and came back to Michigan and talk a little Michigan State. We have friendly rivalry going. He's a big Michigan State Spartan fan. So we'll talk about some of his hobbies that he does outside of the coaching, and he's also a teacher. So we'll talk about some of his side gigs that he's got going on. And Dave has rental properties, and so we touch on that as well. So I hope you enjoy this, especially if you're from the mid-Michigan area. It gives you a little insight as to who Dave Matthews is. You have to know him, to really appreciate his abilities at such a young age. He's one of these young, energetic coaches on the sidelines. My responsibility was on the sidelines is to keep Dave in the game. He's very fiery, and on occasion the headset would fly, and it was my job to retrieve that and to make sure that he wasn't giving the officials too much business, because we needed him on the sidelines and not getting ejected from the game. But he does a great job. He's building a program out there from square one, which is very difficult. And we'll talk about the difficulties that go along with that. So I hope you enjoy the interview with Potterville Vikings head varsity football coach, Dave Matthews. This week's podcast is sponsored by a great local distillery that I wanted to pass on to everyone. The Ellison Distillery and Brewery in East Lansing, Michigan. And they make some fantastic stuff here. For example, they have handcrafted vodka. They have straight bourbon. Really, really, really good stuff. They make it right there in front of you. While you're there, they have a neat little bar area, kind of a speakeasy in East Lansing over on Dawn Street, and I encourage everybody to try it out. Get over there and give Mr. Aaron Hansen, the owner of Ellison, some of your business. He is a U.S. Military veteran and has done tours in the Middle East, and came home and got himself and a partner got this business up and running. And I believe they have more than one location as well. I think there's one in Indianapolis, but the one in East Lansing is the hometown distillery here. So check out Ellison Distillery and Brewery in East Lansing, Michigan.
Welcome to Chiefs C4 Podcast, where cops, cars, and current events are the preferred topics. McPhee, aka the Chief, is a 30-year veteran detective of the Michigan State Police, an avid hot rod builder and automotive connoisseur, a Native American, and the proud father of 2 sons, both members of the U.S. Army, Michigan National Guard, 125th Infantry Regiment. This podcast is not intended for the weak at heart. Alpha males are always welcome, and honest opinions are always given. Now buckle your seatbelt. You are now entering the No Snowflake Zone.
All right, we are got sound and we got audio and we got Coach Dave Matthews in the Chiefs C4 podcast tonight. And happy 420 of 20 to you, Coach.
You as well, Coach McPhee.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good to see you. Good. I'm doing well. I'm staying isolated in my underground bunker in a nondescript building in mid-Michigan. So it's hard to stay indoors when the sun comes out. Let's put it that way.
I agree. I am lodged indoors in my condo in Delta Township. I acquired a weight room over the last couple of weeks. I have a hot tub and a sauna. But other than that, I'm going crazy, man.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get out and play just like everybody else.
It's tough. It's tough, but we'll ride out the storm. Hopefully this will pass soon and we'll get back to business. I wanted to have you on because football season's coming up, and I kind of wanted to bring you on and introduce people to you and talk about some things, try to get some exposure to your program a little bit, and kind of talk about how we met. I came just for some background. I coached Potterville youth football for several years, and I coached my son Dylan, and in I cycled out of the coaching business roughly 2013. I coached from 2008 to 2013 in the youth program there at Potterville. And then Potterville's varsity coach left, I think in 2010, 11, 12, something like that. Maybe it was 13. And then they ended up having a new coach every year. And 2017 came along, is that right, where Dave Matthews was named the head coach of the Potterville varsity football team?
Yep. I was in Maryland teaching and coaching. I had moved out there after college in February of 2008. And I had been out there teaching and coaching. And my father got sick. He got ALS and FTD in about 2011. And I'm from Bay City, Michigan. I went to Essexville Garber. So long ways from home, so I was only getting home around Christmas and, the summer and spring break. So kind of, after my first few years out there, I got established. I was doing really well out there. No complaints. Got stuff. Doing real well, but I just always kind of felt like I was a Michigan guy. Family comes first. And then once we kind of made the decision that we were going to have to put Dad in a assisted living facility, I was like, you know what, I gotta get home to help out with everything. So yeah. I got a job in Potterville. April 10th of 2017 was my first day. So I basically started at the beginning of the fourth quarter in 2017. And not only was I the fourth football coach in 4 years, I was also the fourth teacher in 1 year. So
is that right?
There were a lot of things to clean up right when I got there, though.
Yeah. Yeah, that was I think Dylan had told me that new coach had been appointed there in the spring of 17. And I think you and I made contact in around June or so during the summer workout season. And you asked if I was interested to come back. And because several of my old players were now going to play for you. And I did that. And I'm going to tell you something, man. I'm very grateful that you did that for me. That was a good way to close things out because things were kind of unfinished for me, if you would say, out there at the time. And I had a terrific time coaching, being one of your assistants. I learned a ton of football from you. And, we had a good time. I thought we had a tough season that first year, But you were, it's the same Potterville thing as always. Is we're always struggling to get players and bodies. It's Iron Man football every year out there, and that's you were tasked with, hey, build us a new program from square one. How much of a job is that, right?
Well, it's definitely a challenge, but I knew this in time, and I didn't want to come in and make a bunch of promises to the kids. And this is nothing against the previous three coaches because they're good guys. I know them all, but I didn't want to come in and say, hey, do this, do this, do this, do this. And then, after we won that game year one, week 9 against Durant, I didn't want to just be that guy that, hey, I improved things. I want to go. I want to try to get it,
Yeah.
It's just, it's difficult. I mean, because there's some classes like the senior class last year that only had 3 kids playing. And I think the last, week 7, 8, and 9, I don't think I dressed a senior. Wow. Actually, week 9, Johnny Thompson came back, so he played, but he missed most of the season. But there's just been such kind of like a yo-yo of this class has 10, 7, 8 kids, 9. This class has 4 or 5. And, you can get away in baseball or track or basketball with playing a lot of sophomores and freshmen up on varsity. You can get away with that a little bit. But football is really the one sport where it really, it's very difficult to be competitive.
Dave, I was really, I coached all the way up to the 8th grade. And I always said there's a huge difference between just like a 7th grader and an 8th grader, because that's where those boys are really maturing. Sure. And then when we saw about putting freshmen out on the varsity football field, there's a big difference between a 9th grader and a 12th grader physically.
And these kids that will be seniors this year, I really look at this as really my first class. Yeah. Because they were freshmen when I get it. It's almost like college football because they're the only ones. I'm the only one that's coached them. And without the class of, like, so it'd be 2021, we wouldn't have football in Potterville because that's a big group of kids playing. I think as freshmen, there were 11 in that grade. Now it's right around I think 9 or 10, give or take on the year, because sometimes some kids will come out, sometimes they won't. Mm-hmm. But there's a whole group of kids there that, I really want. I mean, I want success for our entire program, but especially those seniors because, they balled, for me for 3 years now, and a lot of them is, freshmen and sophomores. I mean, when I was a freshman, played freshman football in 1998, I was 130 pounds dripping wet. I mean, I wasn't ready to play Frankenmuth and North Branch and Caro and Millington. I mean, but I respect that they were willing to go out there and play football, even though it wasn't the most ideal situation. And it wasn't, it's really not fair to them. Each kid should have an opportunity to play freshman and sophomore football, or JV football is freshman and sophomore rather. And then, pay your dues there and then come up to the varsity, get some experience. But we're having to throw kids to the wolves. But I think last year was a major step because we had a JV program. And we started out with about 28 or 29 in the program last year, which was our biggest group. But what we did is we decided, we need to get some of these freshmen to play. And a lot of the freshmen weren't going to play if they had to play varsity football, which frankly, I get it. I mean, I understand. I'm not going to be, pissy about it. I understand. Mm-hmm. But we decided to roll with the JV team, because we had the numbers, but that kind of took away from the varsity numbers, if that makes sense. Yeah. Because instead of having 21 or 22, I think we started the first game against Muskegon Heights last year. I think we had 15 kids.
Yeah. And
then we finished the Fulton game week 2 after we had, our quarterback got knocked out. I mean, it was like the MASH unit. I mean, I think we finished with 11 kids that game with a backup quarterback. And I mean, it was 20-7 in the 4th quarter. And our kids were still, they were still battling. So I respect them. I respect that they're out there doing that. And I think this year, and I'm really hoping and praying that we get to have football, because I think this is going to be the year we can turn the corner.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I've been in the coach's room with you when you've had to make some tough decisions regarding what we were going to do as a program. I know that over the years you were approached about 8-man football, and I think we've had private conversations about that you and I I enjoyed coaching for you because you were old school, and I played for a coach in high school that was a Bo Schembechler disciple and played for Bo Schembechler, and he coached like him.
Mhm.
And your coaching style kind of hit home for me, and so you kind of took a little bit of heat for some decisions we had to make, because at one point, I think it was in 17, we were down to 11 players, and we had to go play the number one team in the state in PW, and there were some games that we had to either decide to go and play with 11 or 12, or we needed to not play and protect the safety of the kids, in which we ultimately did. I think we made the right decision.
Oh yeah, and it's you can't. And a lot of those freshman parents, that allowed their kids to play in 2017, I couldn't go out and say, "Hey, I'm going to make sure your kid's safe. I've got his best interest in mind," but then have them start both ways as freshmen against PW.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we had a little more than 11. We might have had 14 or 15, but of those 14 or 15, I think I know what you were saying. I think maybe we could have put 11 on the field, if that makes sense. We just couldn't. You can't just say, just because you got 15, 16 kids, you can't just say, oh well, we can play this kid here. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
You got to have a certain amount of linemen and a certain amount of grade. You can't just, oh, this kid's a 14-year-old wide receiver, let's teach him how to play tackle in a week.
Yeah,
it doesn't work that way.
And one thing that people don't understand that you have to factor in is you got special teams. So if you have a running back that runs 80 yards for a touchdown, there's no rest for him in our program. He goes back out on special teams and runs back down the field, and people don't understand. Well, it's called Iron Man football, and that only lasts until about the third quarter. And most of the time, Iron Man teams will gas out if they're playing platoon teams that are platooning on us.
Well, that's the thing, is like sometimes you can only hold the dam so long. I mean, we've been very competitive in a lot of games, but then there's that little, Langsburg, for example. I think we've been very competitive with them the last 3 years, and they're a very good program. I mean, I've got a lot of respect for that coach and that program. I think, your first year there, it was 14-14 with a minute left in the half, and we throw a pick going into score, and they run back.
Yeah.
For a touchdown. And then, they got one more in like the last 2 minutes. And then this past year, 2019, it's 7-0 with, 35 seconds left in the half. And they throw a Hail Mary down the sideline and gets tipped 3 times, long ass touchdown on us. And then 2018, it's 10-6 at halftime. And they scored by fumbling the ball into the end zone. But it's eventually, we can only use our numbers for so long. We got to find a way to do it. I'm from Bay City, so one of my big rivals was Bay City All Saints. And my senior year, we played All Saints. I think they had 16, 17 kids.
Mm-hmm.
We had just come off winning our league championship and completely overlooked them, and they ran for 530 yards on us.
Wow.
Set a school rushing record on us in a big rivalry game. So it can be done.
Yeah.
But we've just got to get to the point where we've got, of the 16, 17, 18 kids that are playing, we've got to get to the point where all of them are 100%, in tip-top shape, invested, lifting year-round, and then you can do those things. It's tough when you get a last-minute player that really isn't fully conditioned year-round, and then you have to throw them to the wolves a little bit. But I'd like to get it to a point where each – the JV has, 16, 17 kids, and then varsity has at the least 20.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But just, I don't like to, move freshmen up unless I absolutely have to. But like I said, it's, it's very difficult to have to throw freshmen to the wolves like that because they're going to have growing pains. It's not their fault. It's just, they're 14 going against 17-year-olds.
I used to like to use the term, and I think you used it as well. When a new coach comes along or is trying to build a program, we got to have 100% buy-in, and that comes from, the players, their families, the administration, and the community, the fans. They got to buy into this program, or it's not going to be successful. And so I know you're still fighting that and trying to get everybody on the ship. And I hope you have a good. What do you see here for your 2020 squad, as far as seniors coming back and that kind of stuff? What are you looking at?
Well, we've got, I was just talking to a coach from Albion yesterday about some of our players. I think we have a couple kids in that class, a few maybe, that could play Division III football. So I think, and these are kids that have been playing varsity football for 3 years now, so it should pay off this year. And then we've got some other kids that came out that we weren't sure we were going to get. And last year they were allowed to play JV football for about 4 or 5 games till we had to merge by no fault of anybody, but just numbers and injuries. The JV got to play 4 or 5 games last year, then we had to merge. But that experience, those last few games of playing varsity football, should help.
Yeah.
And we've got bodies, we've got talent. I think we've got a 3rd-year starting quarterback, Ethan Dunning, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for. You've seen how hard he plays on Friday night.
Yep.
He's not the biggest kid in the world, but he puts everything he has into it. We got some good players. But we've got to get. I still think we're still building the culture up, trying to. We got to have a winning mentality, and we got to have a winning mindset when we play these games.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not that far off. It really isn't. You were at the Muskegon game last year. I think it was 20-14. We're driving in to win the game, and we stall at the 20-yard line.
Yeah.
It's close. A lot of the games are competitive. Remember, even though we won a game our first year, we didn't win games the last 2 years. I felt like we were better the last 2 years, just because some of the games have been a lot more competitive.
Mm-hmm.
We got that win week 9 in 2017, and we had, that was a good, they had good players on that team, obviously, but that team, your son's senior class, had to go through 4 coaches, and it was just, by the time I got there, it was just, we were just trying to put a team on the field.
It was tough for those kids in that class because, like you said, you were the 4th one, and they had felt like, when is it going to stop? When are we going to have somebody stay? They had
Sure.
that, and so we had to, and I know that was with you had to build that trust with them to say, we're going to ride this thing out. And I think you did that at the end of the year. That last game that we won, I saw tears in those kids' eyes.
Yeah. That's good memory. It was good memory that we had the win and we got to ring the bell for the kids, but no class, no class should have to go through 4 coaches in 4 years.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's bad. It's just like what happened, and we're going to talk about, the virus later, but this, just my heart goes out to these seniors this year, because they, they're getting nuts. A lot of them were, good at track, baseball, softball, that, they're going to have to miss their senior prom. So I just, I want to say my heart goes out to them. I feel awful for it, because, high school, you don't get 4 years.
That's right.
And, they're having to miss a lot of memories because of this, which sucks, frankly.
They're never going to forget it. That's for sure. So
Sure.
let's talk back. Let's back up a little bit about, you said you were born and raised in Bay City. What kind of sports did you play, Dave, when you were young?
I was a football and basketball guy. My dad was a good athlete at Bay City All Saints, so I was born kind of raised in a sports household. My mom's dad, my grandpa Ralph Bluffmer, he played on the 1938 Michigan State Orange Bowl team.
Wow.
So that's why I was born into a Spartan family.
Nice.
So kind of grew up, football and basketball is pretty much what I did. I was recruited a little bit for football, a little NAIA basketball maybe, but I wasn't, a 4'4", 4'4" kid benching 300 pounds. I was just like, a lot of kids that, Essexville Garber is about a school of 700 kids, Class B. We played like Bridgeport, Frankenmuth, Millington. Now they're playing like Swan Valley and Freeland. It's kind of mixed up and everything, but I was more of that gritty point guard, wide receiver type. All-league kid in a couple sports. And then my senior year, I ended up going out for tennis just for the hell of it. And it actually became a really fun thing. I ended up getting number 1 on the team as just an athlete that used to hit the ball like a 95-year-old woman like this, and made the state finals. And then the paper wrote a thing called The Natural. So it was kind of a fun memory, and I'm really glad that I did that. But
you never played tennis before?
I had played in like 4th and 5th grade. It's just, when your mom wants to get you out of the house to go to a tennis camp. So I went and did that. And I just went out there and was just fast as hell and quick. And I just, I hit the ball like a 90-year-old woman, but it was like hitting against my matches would be like 3 hours long. And, you had these kids that would come out with big serves and overhands and whatever. And it was just like hitting the ball against the wall. And, I didn't have any specialties other than I was just an athlete. But
that's tremendous.
But, I was very fortunate at Garber because Garber was a very nice community. We had great supportive parents. I had great parents, and we had great coaches there. And I got to see firsthand, like, how a program's built because Garber was kind of, Garber was almost, kind of where Potterville was. It was, wasn't known for football. It was just not, they didn't think much about football there. And it's just, we were always everybody's homecoming game. And then my class, I graduated 2002. I think my senior year, 2001, we went 7-2 and lost to Chesaning, who ended up winning the state championship that year. So, and the great thing about football is everybody, not to sound like those guys that wants to tell war stories, but I guess that's what we're here for. The coach I mentioned, the college coach that I talked to about the kids from Potterville, he was like, "Oh yeah, I remember Garber. I was at that game in 2001 when we beat you guys." And we remember it because it was late October of 2001 and it was about 18 degrees out. So everybody, right when those compression, long sleeve shirts came out. So I got a brand new Reebok white one under our white jerseys. We had like North Carolina uniforms. And I just remember us just in pregame, we were all just like freezing. It was one of the worst games ever. We lost 40-12 and, the ball was like a chunk of ice, but, the coach that, I'm trying to get, our kids to go play for, and he's interested in our kids too. He was actually at that game as a fan because he graduated from Chesaning, I think in 2009. So
wow, small world.
Small world, right?
Yeah. So what transitioned you or how'd you get into coaching? Tell me that story.
Basically, I went to college at Delta for a year, and my first couple of years I kind of struggled because I was so used to being, I think I was your prototypical guy that, if you don't stay busy, you're going to get on the wrong path a little bit. Like a lot of people, that's why I'm such a big advocate for sports and extracurriculars is because, idle time's the devil's time, right?
Yeah.
So I was, probably the poster child for that. And about 2005, and after I did a year at Delta, I moved out to CMU, and then I got into coaching at Breckenridge High School. And I coached there in 2005, 2006, 2007, and that was very similar to Potterville, very similar town, kind of a small rural town outside of a bigger area. Breckenridge was always a 1-8, 0-9 program. And my first year coming from Garber, I think that got me some respect because Garber was kind of becoming a state power for, making the playoffs every year. And 2 years before that, they were a game short of the semis. So, coaches talk and everything, and they know, oh, you're from Frankenmuth. You played here. That's how football works.
Yes.
And, had some good contacts to help me. So I got a job, and I always thought I was going to be a young, 22-year-old kid coaching D-backs and wide receivers. And the first game comes, and Coach E's like, hey, here you go. You're calling the game. I'm like, wow. I'm up in the box, and I remember calling my first touchdown thinking I was like Mike Martz. And then I went and told my dad and my grandpa about it, and I was all excited, and they just looked at me like, okay, well, if you're in the offensive coordinator, it's kind of your job, so don't be like, I said, all right, cool, but right. I appreciated that, old school, hey, no, what your job is, come on, so.
Yeah.
But then I just took off from there. I was an offensive guy in 05 and 06, and then 07, I kind of went over to defense. And then that's when I graduated college in 07. And then, that was a really rough time for the economy, as you remember. Yep. No teaching jobs in the state. And I was a history PE guy. So, that was even harder. So I went out to Maryland where my brother and sister had moved out there too. And they were set up, just, some support out there. And then, rest is history. I taught middle school and my first year PE and social studies, and I taught at one school, Neal Elementary, for 9 years, and got to coach at a couple different schools out there. And the school I was at the most was North Point High School. My buddy's the head coach there now. I just talked to him earlier today, and I got to coach a kid out there that played at Ohio State. You know, we sent kids to Towson. We sent kids all over the place.
Is that a big school?
4A school, over 2,000 kids.
Wow.
We coached against another kid that went wide receiver, Devontae. Can't remember his last name. He played at Iowa. So just the amount of athletes, and to go from Little Breckenridge, Michigan, you know, 250 kids, and just outside of Gratiot County, that Breckenridge, and then going to Charles County, Maryland, 45 minutes south of DC, just to see like the difference in football. But out there, football kind of was more of a business, if that makes sense. I miss the small town, you know, the Friday night, you know, the bonfires, the Friday night, you know, small town. So I love that.
It was a little less personal out there.
What's that?
A little less personal of a game out there, huh?
Yeah, it's not as the schools are more county based. There's like 7 or 8 schools in Charles County, high schools, whereas in Michigan things are more district based. So you're playing against, you know, Maple Valley, the town over from there. So it's a little more, you know, this business, this guy owns this business in this town. It's, you know, it's fun because everybody knows each other, and it makes the game a little more interesting. And, you know, I think the news around here does a great job covering sports. And I love the Friday night stuff, and like the hype for the games and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And, you know, I think you're on the right track, and we expect some excitement this fall. I'm looking forward to seeing what you got.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, the importance of having a youth program in your program that's kind of built around what you're doing. Do you believe that those youth programs should be basically running some of your stuff?
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, I think a big problem that's happened in Potterville is, I think, you know, I think sometimes with youth football, less is more. And I think, you know, I didn't start playing football till 6th grade. And then in 7th grade, I was too old because they had an age cutoff. And then in 8th grade, I could play again. Yeah. So by the time, you know, high school came, I'd only played 2 years of tackle football. And I was still, you know, fresh and ready to go get it and everything. And you start putting these kids in helmets and shoulder pads in 3rd grade. They're playing what, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. I mean, what is that? 6 years, 6, 7 years before they even get into high school.
Yep.
And all it takes is one coach to give them a bad experience or to teach them the wrong thing, and one kid to get hurt, and you know, God forbid, get a concussion, and then, you know, it turns into, he's not playing football anymore. You know, we need these kids to play high school football. We need them in 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. It's not that I don't want them to play at that age, but if I had my way, and our president, Amy McDowell, is awesome. This year, we're really, you know, kind of basically taking over the program and hiring coaches and saying this is kind of how we're going to do things, because there's been some resistance in the past. But I think all the coaches that are there now and in the past, I think, you know, their hearts are in the right place. They're putting in time, which I respect.
Yeah.
But there's, you know, you can't really complain about not having, you know, direction from the high school. But then when the high school asks you to do something, not want to do it. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's either going to be A or B. That's kind of the whole thing. And any good high school football program will have, you know, a good relationship between the youth and between the varsity coach. And it's not really a power thing. It's just more of a, hey, there's a lot of different ways to teach.
Yeah.
But let's make sure when they get to me, they know what a 3 technique is. They know what a zone turn is. They know how to get into a stance first and foremost.
That would save you a lot of time during summer workouts where you could just focus on working out. Yeah. And, you know, if I say, you know, hey, reach block or, you know, shed, you know, they know what those terms are. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, we can't, sometimes I go watch some of the games, and, you know, this guy's in this position. He's got this stance. This guy's in this stance. This guy's in this stance. And it's like fundamentals. I want fundamentals. I mean, do I want my scheme taught? Yeah, but I want more guys saying, all right, before we're even going to teach a run play, we're going to get you in a stance. We're going to teach you how to tackle. We're going to teach you, how to line up. I mean, it's just you can't teach, geometry before you can teach before, the kids have addition and subtraction mastered.
That's right.
That makes sense.
And what I found, Dave, is when I was in the heat of it, I didn't really see, but when I got to coach with you, and then I realized that my son was in his 10th season of tackle football. Most pro players don't play 10 years of pro football. I mean, that's a lot of knocks to the head, especially for kids like him, those alpha males that's their style of, he was at the end of, and you knew this, at the end of his high school career, he didn't want to go play college football. He wasn't interested.
He was done.
He was done.
And, and he was a very good player. And I was done after playing 6 years. I mean, I think, the youth football program now is going to go 5th and 6th grade football. They got rid of 3rd grade football. I think they're still on the fence about having a 4th grade team, but at least we got rid of 3rd grade.
Football leagues.
What's that?
They can always run flag football leagues.
Oh, absolutely. They can still do that. That's what I did until, 6th grade.
Yeah. So,
and I couldn't wait to put pads on, but, who knows what would have happened if I would have started in 3rd grade and I would have played for some guy that, a screamer and yeller. And I mean, you got to get teachers down there, but every youth football coach, their 2 main goals should be, number 1, retention, and number 2, having fun. Because of the kids, football, let's be honest, football is a grind. It's a brutal, nasty, it's not a physical sport, it's a violent sport. If the kids don't enjoy doing it at a young age, they're not going to come back and do it.
That's right.
I enjoyed playing it, but I mean, it was in my family, but I enjoyed playing backyard football my whole life, just without pads. Then when I got to put pads on, I loved it. But there were, we even had, times where, when we were growing up, where we might not like a coach, and you know how kids are. Oh, I'm not going to play if he's the coach. Stuff like that. So you got to get people that are in it for the right reasons. You don't have to get people that print playbooks off the internet and this is what we're running. I mean, we talk at coaches clinics.
Would we call those the Xbox Warriors coaches?
Xbox Warriors, but it's like it's like somebody building a house and they just go find a blueprint of a house and say, I want to build this. It's like, dude, like there's so many things you got to do first.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's hard arguing with some people, with some people because they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And it's not like a boss thing. It's not like, hey, I'm doing this just because I can tell you what to do. It's because, it's all, everything feeds up to the varsity and youth football, like whether it be basketball too. And you've seen, the success the basketball programs had.
Yeah.
They won 16, 17 games, but they've been playing youth ball together now for 6-7 years. They've had coaches running what the varsity wants to run, stuff like that. And it's kind of trickled up.
Buy-in.
Yeah, buy-in.
Yeah.
But, a big part of it is I think you got to have coaches at that level that are going to do what you want. And I think this year I've really got that.
Yeah, good.
So a big thing is we still got to keep just pounding the community for bodies, though. Got to get kids to play football, man. You got to keep them playing football.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. Let's also talk about, and this was big. I was real big on this, and I got to see it firsthand when I coached for you. The going gets tough out there of who's gonna show leadership, and the importance of senior leadership in a program like ours, the small programs, is super important. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You almost have to have certain kids that are like coaches on the field. You're going to have an injury that's going to impact the whole team. It's next man up, and you got to have that leadership that can do that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, your son was a great leader. Hunter Geisen in his class, Zane Stanton in that class. And the next year, Mitchell Van Note and Zach Baker were tremendous leaders.
Yeah.
Right now, my main leader, I got a few, Cole Davis, Robert Parks, Ethan Dunning. Everybody, like was it Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan till they get hit in the mouth.
Yes.
You got to have some people that can kind of, calm the waters a little bit or calm the storm when things go wrong. And probably the biggest area where we've improved, I think, is when something goes wrong, it's not just going for plunk.
The mental toughness game.
Yeah, we're getting mentally tough. We're learning how to take a blow and fight back and not just wilt. I mean, things would get out of control that first year. You were there.
Yes. Yeah.
Now I feel like if a team scores on us, it's it's not just the head down syndrome.
We're going to counterpunch.
We're gonna counterpunch. Yeah. Now, are we counterpunching as strong as I'd like right now? No, but it's getting better. It's
Good.
getting better. But part of that is and people say, well, do you think people have asked me before? It's like, you think the kids quit? You think this? I said, no, I don't think they quit. I think we're outmanned.
Yeah.
And I said, we've got. I said, I'm looking at this game right now. We've got, we played Fowler this year, and they've got, almost 30 kids, and they were in the. I think they made the state semifinals this year. I mean, our division's a bitch. So we're not playing, the Blind Sisters of the Poor. We're playing some pretty damn good teams. So, that's why I stress the off-season stuff so much, because Friday night in September and October are going to get real nasty unless you're physically prepared for them.
That's right.
So,
do you use the CMAC, the Central Michigan Athletic Conference that we play in?
Yeah.
It's been a tough conference to be in, and do you expect it? Do you expect the same powerhouses this year to be at the top of the division like usual, the top of the conference like usual?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think schools like that, they just reload, and I think was it 2018 Fowler might have went 5-4 or 6-3. I think they went 5-4 that year, and that's considered a down year for them.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, but generally but my whole thing is I don't think Fowler kids are any different from Potterville kids. I just think, if they've got more kids playing and they've got maybe a more structured youth level and they've got more bodies per grade playing, and we've got good players here. We've got talent here. I mean, I put Ethan Dunning up at quarterback against anybody in the league.
Yeah.
But we got to have, you got to get, you're not going to have 15 all-staters on your team, but you got to have, 15 to 20 guys that are there every single day, working, lifting, running, buying into your scheme. It can't be, my first year, this is how much better the program's gotten. I mean, you would come in the morning sometimes. Who was it? It was, 5 or 6 kids every. And then this past year, we'd have 15 to 20 on average, I'd say, which is a huge jump, But
I used to say you can't play football like pickup basketball. You can't just show up and play.
Oh, that's one thing we're changing. And I'll never forget the first 7-on-7 I had in Potterville, and kids were riding up on their bikes saying, I want to play football.
Yeah.
They wanted to do the 7-on-7, and I'm like, whew. That's when I knew I had my work cut out for me, because the kids thought they could show up and just join 7-on-7 when the games happen. It's like, it's not open gym here. I mean, there's pass routes, there's coverage checks, there's way to play a zone, way to play a man. If motion I mean, you got to be there for all that stuff.
That's right.
I mean, football of any sport is the ultimate team game. You got the most players on the field, I believe, in any sport, right?
Yeah.
And then
there's
what
the schemes that you have to understand from you, but you got to understand what the defenders are going to bring at you as well.
Oh, you're a quarterback and timing. I mean, and I was lucky because Zane and Dylan, your year 2017, they had played football together so long, they had good timing down.
Yeah.
But when you're bringing a receiver, that's just, you work on them all year and you get them, okay, in May and June, he's going to decide to play football. And then the quarterback comes. You better hope that receiver comes so you can get out and work some timing routes and do that stuff in the summer. But it's coming along. I really do believe that, and it's more kids are doing it. And we've got with this virus thing going on, we've got a Team Reach app where we've been posting workouts. Andrew Barr, one of my assistants, he got a Facebook workout page for the kids. So one of my players texted me. He's got like 2 big, four-wheeler tires on a stick out there bench pressing. So
Nice.
We've got kids lifting, and they know how important it is now.
Yeah.
And it's just like anything with teenagers. And I'm a teacher. You tell them stuff till you're blue in the face, but till they really experience, and they're like, oh, yeah, maybe the guy isn't a dumbass.
Yeah. I do. Let's transition away from high school football. Let's talk college football. You are a huge Spartan fan, and I'm a huge Wolverines fan. And the Spartans, have a new head coach in town in East Lansing. What do you know about him, and what do you expect to see? What kind of style do you expect them to run?
I think he's going to be the type of – he's got the background that any coach that has ever been successful at Michigan State has. He's a defensive first coach. I do think, and I love Coach D'Antonio is probably my favorite coach of all time. I love the man. He had everything he did there. I think the program probably needed a little bit of a kickstart. I think, I thought the media was completely unfair to him, and that's another topic for another day. The Curtis Blackwell stuff, I really think hurt his recruiting in the state, especially. Yeah. And I think, there's now a clean slate. And I think, like, today they just got another kid from DeMatha High School out in Maryland, which I used to do 7-on-7s with out there.
Wow.
And a kid, and they got two big defensive line commitments for Michigan this week. One from Detroit, which is big, and then one from, I believe, Mott.
Good.
So it's a Waterford Mott or Warren Mott, one of those, something Mott, but big D lineman. So I like Mel Tucker. I like the hire. He brought in some former Spartan players, Courtney Hawkins and Harlan Barnett. I think they're going to be a run-first team. I think it's proven, whether you're Michigan or Michigan State, we're blue-collar schools and blue-collar football pedigree. You got to run the ball and control the clock and play defense.
Yeah.
Anytime Michigan State has ever been good at football, they were tough, physical, out-hit you, time of possession. It drives me crazy because people want to bring in these big, bad spread gurus and throw it 30, 50 times. Well, we had that with John L. Smith.
Right.
Michigan had a big spread guru with Rich Rod. And, you've had these things, but I think each school, like, how good do you think the Iowa Hawkeyes would be if they brought in Mike Leach and they slung the ball 60 times a game?
Right.
Each school, whether by their region, kind of, determines what they can and what they cannot do. And I think the only way to beat Ohio State is because they get so many athletes is to get them in a phone booth and turn the game into a fist fight, because that's how Michigan State had so much. Michigan State beat them 3 times the past 10 years.
Yes.
And then they had 2 17-16 losses against those guys.
And that's what Michigan's not doing.
Yes.
We're trying to go to a shootout with them.
Yeah, and you're not going to do that. You're going to score a little bit here, but you play a team that's got superior talent, you've got to shorten the game. You got to keep that offense off the field, and you got to make them uncomfortable in the mouth. And that's what Coach D did so brilliantly in those games. I mean, that game, the 2015 game when they went to Ohio State and won with 2 backup quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And they held they held the ball for like 35 minutes.
Yeah.
But had they went into that game or and tried to throw the ball 60 times, not what happened.
I looked at the Spartans. Got a tough schedule. They got this year.
Yeah, they do. They do. And they got to go to BYU, and they got Miami coming in. Quarterback's a question, but they, I think, will have a very good offensive line next year. At the last 3 or 4 games, we're starting 2 or 3 freshmen, and I think defensively they're going to move that Barnett kid back over to defense. Linebacker worries me, but I think the defensive line there is always going to be pretty solid. But I just think the program needed a little bit of a spark.
Sure.
And it happens. I mean, look at Lloyd Carr's last year. He lost to Appalachian State.
Yeah.
I mean, everything good comes to an end.
Yeah. You're right.
Coach D did a tremendous job. Lloyd Carr did a tremendous job, but I don't want Michigan State fans to be like, oh, well, we just, okay, we went 7-6 the last 2 years, but the year before that we won 10 games. So over a 3-year span, it's been 8-4 football.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Michigan and Michigan State are both perennial 8-4 programs where each program's going to cycle up and win 10 or 11 games once in a while. But on average, over a 5-10 year, they're probably going to be more in that 8-4, 9-3 range. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree with that. And I would agree that Jim Harbaugh has to find a way to beat Ohio State, or they're going to run them out of town on a rail. But I don't know who you bring in that's going to beat Ohio State. I mean,
well, and I'm a big State fan, so obviously I don't like Michigan. But it's like, at what point, is if we want to be, this elite blue blood school, you got to break through. I mean, Penn State's been able to beat Ohio State. Wisconsin has. Michigan State did. And if you are, here, I mean, he was brought in to beat Ohio State. And, I give him credit. He's made Michigan better. He's beat State the last couple of years, but he's still not made them elite.
Yeah.
And, and I don't know what the argument is. A lot of people thought one of the arguments that made me crazy as a State fan was the only reason State was good was because Michigan was down. Now can I say Michigan's only good because State's down? I mean, I just, it's one of those things you can debate on back and forth for days, but it's one of those things where I think both programs are perennial 8-4, maybe 9-3, and then each team will maybe cycle up a little bit.
Should be a good game this year between them.
What's that?
Should be a good game this year.
Yeah, and I mean Michigan State won 11 games, 5 out of 6 years. I mean, let's not. I know people were complaining so much about Coach D, and it drove me crazy. Let's not forget about what we had.
Yeah,
I mean, we had a pretty damn good run and a damn good coach, and
that was a 10-year run, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was there from 07, because that was my first year that fall out of college. I remember the 07 and then until now, so 13 years.
Yeah,
and he went to 12 bowl games, and I mean, before him, the goal at Michigan State was to make a bowl game.
That's right.
When I was growing up, they were a perennial 6-5, 7-4, 6-6 program, and then every once in a while you beat Michigan, and it was a hell of a season.
Yeah.
But he's kind of upped the ante and shown what you can do at that place if you get the right man in there and you get things rolling in the right direction. But I really just think Coach D got treated unfair, and there were a lot of things that we don't need to talk about now, but that went on at the university that he kind of got thrown into unfairly. And even if you're a Michigan fan, you got to agree with that. They tried to
tarnish his legacy.
Yeah, and just a lot of the the other stuff that went on outside of football.
Yeah,
he got thrown into it unfairly, and it kind of casted a cloud over the whole university. And you can't beat a guy. What are you going to do? You're going to negative recruit him. So that went on all over the country. So, sadly, but that's just how the business works.
Yep, you're right. So good deal. We're looking forward to that. I can't wait to. I hope it doesn't get delayed because of all this, man. This virus stuff.
That's very scary in my opinion if that happens for high school and for college.
I think the world needs to watch some sports on television right now. I really do. They got to figure out a way even if they play with no fans in the stadium or something. Whatever. Put it on television or something.
Yeah, just backroom rumor I've heard is that MHSAA has a June 14th startup date. That's kind of like they're not going to come out publicly and say it, but just through back channels I've heard that's a date they want to have for things to start get rolling.
Okay.
So, but don't shoot the messenger, and that was just confidential sources, but that's right. What my moles are telling me.
Got to have those. Mm-hmm. Hey, let's talk about what do you do in the off season, and what are some of what do you do for fun? What do you do for hobbies, or when you're not watching film and roaming the sidelines? What do you do?
Obviously, I like to stay active. Like to work out still. I also stay busy. Back when I was out in Maryland, I kind of got into real estate a little bit. and started doing rental properties. So I've got basically 3 rental properties right now that I manage myself. And, I say manage myself. I don't really have to do like a lot of maintenance. Cause I'm gonna be honest, I'm not the most handy guy, but I've got into that back in 2010, and that was probably one of the smartest things that I did. And I think as you get older, you kind of branch out and do more things. I mean, I know you have your car business thing that you do, and it's just one thing that I got into back out in Maryland. And like I said, last September, last July, I sold my last house in Maryland. So kind of my old Maryland life's done. And I bought a duplex in Jackson in September, and I just bought another single family here in Grand Ledge in January.
What's now, I would imagine the biggest challenges would be, you'd mentioned keeping the maintenance up and getting the repairs done, but how much of a challenge is, I imagine you're doing due diligence on really doing background checks on your occupants so you don't get stuck or, someone doesn't put the screws to you.
Oh yeah, we do that. The one I bought in Jackson, and knock on wood, I've been very fortunate with renters. And if I've learned anything through doing like rental properties, it's about the people. It's not so much about the property. If that makes sense.
Okay.
The one I bought in Jackson, I went in there and I looked at several, and I walked in some of those properties, and these guys, you thought you were walking into like one of those weird planets on Star Trek. Some of those properties at those places, some of those people I saw.
Really?
But, yeah, oh my God. Probably stories we can't tell on here, but the one in Jackson, I went in there, and great lady. Her son lives above her. They had lived there for about a year, and the lady that had owned the place, it's called a turnkey property, which means there's already tenants in there. I got a good feel for them. I kind of built the relationship with the tenants first, and then made an offer on the property, got it, bought it, and it's going very well. And then the one in Grand Ledge, that's actually an assistant coach on my staff, and him and his dad own a gym right here in Grand Ledge, and they were looking to get out of these apartments. These runaway bay apartments over here.
Yeah.
And when I moved here in April of 17, I lived there for a year, and I hated it because of how they things were. And then I bought this condo in May of 18, and they wanted to get out of there too. So I'm like, well, why don't we do this? So I had people that I trusted and I knew before I bought this other one first.
Oh, that's good.
But that's the way to do it. You don't want to go into this thing and just say, oh, I'm going to buy something and then hope to get people in there. So it's probably one of the smartest things that I've gotten involved in. I really enjoy it besides football. So, but like I said, it's just another example of staying busy.
Yeah.
Good.
It's a good buyer's market right now, right?
Oh yeah. Great passive income. And just like I said, it's, I think in a few months when all this is over, I think, real estate's going to be very hot. And I think there's going to be some good buys out there and everything. But right now everybody's just doing virtual tours, and now's not the time. I think you wait a little bit, but it's a good, it's good passive income, and it's a good way to, make some side cash and everything. I really enjoy it. I like looking at places and doing all that stuff. So
good. So, before we wrap up, what's, the COVID-19 thing is everybody's mind, and, we don't know how long it's going to last and how long we're going to be grounded here. But if we get back to business in the next month or so, how do you think what effect is that going to have on your football program and how we operate through that? And then just in school in general, is it going to affect how the classroom gets administered?
Well, we're doing obviously online teaching right now, and Eaton County, I guess our principal told us, gave Potterville, some great praise, I guess, because we were one of the first schools in the area to get everything up and running. And I guess some of the other schools aren't even up and running, but we started the week of the 13th. So we're on our second full week now. And, it's just going to be a societal change, I think. I mean, I hope things just go back to how they were. I do think we're going to have football. If I had to make the prediction, I do think we'll have football in the fall, because they're talking about opening up things, phase 1, phase 2, and all those things. They're talking about opening up May 1st, I guess, depending on the state. But it's tough because obviously New York, I could see why maybe you wouldn't. But
Yeah.
if you're in, Utah or Kansas or New Mexico, one of those, South Dakota, where there's not, do those states really deserve to shut down?
Right.
And that's more of a political debate, I guess.
Yeah, you can't paint the whole state of Michigan with the Detroit brush.
No, I would agree with that.
I
would 100% agree with that. But I just think it's going to be interesting. When you go into a building now and you meet somebody, are we going to shake hands anymore? Or are we going to do what the Japanese do and bow to each other?
Yeah, right.
I don't know, because it's like, how we are is, you see somebody, you go up and you greet them, you shake their hands. That's just a sign of respect that's been going on 200 years, if not more.
Yeah.
And now it's like, are we going to do that anymore?
I got to believe when we get back, we have to have the cleanest country right now that we've ever had.
Oh, and it's almost a shame that it took this for people to start washing their hands more. And, my kids make fun of me because I put that stuff on like 3 or 4 times a day, and I got emergency in my, my drawer and everything, but I'm always doing this and cleaning, and I'm just a clean dude, but everybody should have been like that. That's kind of my whole thing, but
I'm sure
it's just
that we're going to have a second wave of this, I think, at some point, but, I don't know. I guess we'll see. I'm not a medical professional, but we'll probably have a second wave, I'm guessing, if he relaxes everything.
Well, I think, and I think we need, like I said, I know we don't want to turn this into a political podcast, but I think China needs to be a little more open.
Yes.
And those countries like that are not all the time, but they really put the entire world in jeopardy with their lack of information, and you know what I mean? And
yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, a few people decide to be selfish and the whole world suffers now.
Boy, and it hit quick. I can't believe how quick it spread.
Mm-hmm. And, I think if they don't open stuff up, I'm glad they're, sending this money out to people to help them. I'm fortunate because nothing's really changed for me.
Right.
So, and I don't have anything to complain about, but it's the mom and pop restaurants and the mom and pop, donut shops or car places, people aren't, and mom and pop gyms. When all this comes back, if people are trying to save money, they're probably not going to pay an extra $100, $200 a month to have a family pass to go to a gym.
That's right.
And people are going to suffer.
Yeah.
But, I'm glad that, our country's kind of coming. It seems like, there's so much negative stuff out there, but it seems like our country's trying to come together a little bit and work with each other. But there's got to be some, balance where everybody's got to give in a little bit on some things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we keep doing the social distancing and are smart about it, and just instead of just say, all right, everything's open, and kind of just slowly but surely, maybe we start with movie theaters, then we go to malls, then we go to restaurants.
Yeah.
And just kind of gradually build it. I think that's the way to do it. And then we'll have just a normal society back in, July.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. So do you have anything you want to plug? You got any camps, or you got social media you want anybody to follow you on? You want to plug anything?
I'm not really a social media dude. Okay. I think you might know that, but I'm working on it. We've just got a Facebook page. We got a Team Reach app that we kind of communicate with our kids. But other than that, I appreciate you having me on and talking football. And I hope we do this for the CMAC stuff in the fall, like you talked about.
Yeah, let's do that.
Anything I can do to help you get your show running, let me know. Thank you.
Yep. We will. We'll get you back on, and once this is all done and stuff, maybe we can do it right from your office or right from the football area out there in the school, and see what the preview of the season's going to be like. So looking forward to it, man. Thanks for joining me tonight. I appreciate it as always, and we will catch up and have a few tip a few back when all this passes, man. Thanks for coming. All right, man. You have a good night. Okay, Coach. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye. All right, I want to thank Coach Dave Matthews for coming on the show this week. I appreciate him taking time out of his busy schedule to have a chat with me about about his life as a head football coach in the high school ranks, and talked about his transition from coaching at large schools out east to coming back home and coaching at real small schools, and the adjustments that he had to make. So real interesting, and we're looking forward to following the Potterville Vikings football season this fall. So thanks again to Coach Matthews. I just want to say that I appreciate everybody following, liking us, and subscribing to the show. And we want to continue to bring interesting guests on that are thought-provoking and have interesting topics to talk about. So we have a few lined up. I won't give any spoilers at this time, but we want you guys to keep following the show, and we're going to reach out and bring some real interesting people on for you. So if you have any questions, concerns, bitches, complaints, anything like that, feel free to hit me up at the chiefc4podcast@gmail.com, or you can leave it in the comments below, and I'll try to get back with you. But follow us, like us, subscribe to us, so we can keep the locomotive on the tracks here and keep it moving forward. So thanks again for joining the Chiefs C4 podcast. We look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, everyone.